very pleased to be joined on the line right now by Merritt Centennials Head Coach and GM Luke Pierce. Obviously, Luke, some pretty big changes announced by the BC Hockey League. Let's start off, first off, by saying thanks for taking the time to chat. It's been a while.
Yeah, my pleasure, Brian. Thanks. It has been a while.
I know it's a busy time, even though it's the off season. You're getting ready for a pretty big event in your personal life. I know that for sure. But let's look ahead to next season, what the BCHL has announced, and let's start off first with the fact that 4 teams from each conference make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's obviously a pretty drastic change, and I think with all of the changes that have been made, there was a committee of governors that got together, and I know they made all the changes with what they thought was in the best interest of the league. And as a coach and GM, there's not much I can do about it, but try and do my job. And as for the playoff change, I think there's obviously it's going to be a challenge, and it makes things difficult for all teams, not just for us. But the way I kind of see it is, if you're content with facing every season and just hoping to finish 6th or 7th to make the playoffs, that's not really the goal that we all have. We all want to finish first, and if we set that goal, we try and get in the top 4, and we're in. So we'll make a go of it here.
How about you personally? Do you like getting rid of the bye?
You know what? The bye has its pros and cons, I think, as everybody would tell you, and I think what it does do is it opens up some other changes that I really like in our league as far as the schedule, and some changes were necessary to make that work. And you're not going to be able to keep everybody happy, and there's things that I'm not ecstatic about. But like I said, there's no point in me wasting time, complaining or anything about them. We have to do our jobs and move on.
So now we know that one round of the playoffs is being eliminated with only 4 teams qualifying. You mentioned there about not wanting to finish, and facing the top seed or the second seed in the first round of the playoffs. This is also on a trial basis too, and will be reviewed at the end of the 2011-12 season. So what about the fact that there are only 3 rounds of the playoffs? Do you think that that's a good idea, or how does that impact the Merritt Centennials?
Well, it obviously makes it, that much more, the regular season becomes that much more important for us. And I think we have to, we can't afford to have a slow start like we had this year. We can't afford to have that, window in January, February. We had a bit of a lull because of where we were in the standings. Every game is going to mean that much more.
Right.
And I think from a fan's perspective, it's going to make the regular season that much more exciting. I mean, every game is going to matter, and teams are going to fight tooth and nail for points, and you'll see some pretty intense rivalries build up, I'm sure, and we hope that we can just make sure that we're in the mix of that top 4 teams, and if we can do that, it'll make for a very, very exciting regular season.
Well, and this really isn't a surprise. This fits right in with your strategic plan in year 2 anyway.
Yeah, it does. I think we wanted to finish in a spot where we would get home ice in the playoffs, and that was based on the old structure. Now that means that we have to finish first or second in our division, and like I said, if your goal is to just squeak in every year, there's something wrong with your philosophy, I think. And to finish first or second in a very tough interior division is definitely a challenge, but we're going to shoot for that.
How about the fact that the 2011-12 season starts now on September 23rd? It's almost, in fact, 2 weeks after the traditional start time, and then we'll wrap up a little bit later in March. The reasoning here from the league is to coincide more with the traditional hockey season. The WHL doesn't start until around there. The NHL season starts a couple weeks after. How does that impact you in terms of the schedule breaking down for next year?
Well, that's probably the one change that I like the most. I think it's, playing hockey in late August, early September is insane to me, and I think it definitely affects our attendance and revenue side of things, because fans would much rather be doing other things in the beautiful weather, especially here in Merritt. So I like that aspect. I think starting a little later and finishing later on in March is a great fit, and it's going to change things a bit. I think it gives us much more time to prepare for our season. Our camp is going to have to run around the same time as it has in the past, because we have to get everything kind of wrapped up before the school semester year starts, and it just gives us that much more time to go into the season with systems in place and familiarity and all that stuff. So it'll be a much more professional type of operation, I think.
That's what I was going to ask you about, the impact in terms of school. Has the league said anything to the teams at this point about an exhibition season? Does it mean there's going to be more exhibition games or anything like that, or is that unknown at this point?
Well, I think that, we'll definitely, this has been in talks for over a month now about the pros and cons and how we would make it work. And I think that the school thing is definitely a factor, and we're going to have to remain, running our camps. They might not start on the, 20th of August. They might be back a week after that. But the exhibition is going to be spanned probably over 3 weeks from that Labor Day time on till the 23rd when the season starts. And what that does, too, is it spreads that out so we can play some more weekend games, hopefully. And, last couple of years here, it's been you play 5 exhibition games in 6 or 7 nights, and that is absolutely crazy. And, I think it's gonna make a lot of changes for the better this way.
Now, how about the half interlock schedule? This isn't one that is new to the league, as they've had it in the past before. But the fact is now that, for example, you might only make one trip over to the island to play the 3 or 4 teams on one road trip, and then those other teams in the Coastal Conference will end up coming to Merritt. What do you think about that?
I think it's. Again, with all of these, there's pros and cons. I've never seen it done this way. When I played as a player, we had a double interlock, and the years that I've coached, it's been a double. So I'm interested to see how it's going to work out. I think for the fans, some people might, feel that they miss out on some of the teams in our league that, maybe are going to have a great season or have great players on them. But, at the end of the day, we got to remember that there's pretty significant costs associated with the travel, and, us in Merritt, it's probably not as big of an issue because of our central location, but a lot of teams are facing some pretty significant costs with their travel arrangements. So if that's going to help everybody, be a little more competitive financially, then I'm all for it.
How do you think it does in building some pretty strong rivalries in your own conference? Not that there is a lack of rivalries with probably every team in our conference, but now you're going to face those clubs a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely. I think that our division is once again going to be strong. You look at how well Vernon did at the World Bank Cup this year, and every team in this interior division gave them a good run throughout the year. And I think, again, next year there's going to be a lot of parity in our division, so it's going to make for some pretty intense rivalries. And again, with the way the playoff format is, every one of those games is going to mean a lot. So if there's a point spread between two teams, the team that's ahead isn't going to take it lightly necessarily because they're going to need those points. So it'll definitely be interesting.
Now, how about the league itself producing the schedule? It was your first season as a head coach going into the AGM last year, hammering out that schedule along with Brian Barrett, of course, for the 2010-11 season. Do you like having that off your plate now?
Absolutely. It was an interesting thing for me. I wasn't in there fighting tooth and nail for every single thing we wanted. There has to be some give and take on teams' behalf, and some teams just aren't willing to give it all. So it makes for a long process. And I think this way, it's people are going to be unhappy with, I'm sure, some of their schedules, but this way it's done by the league, and we all just accept it and move on and play.
And what they're doing is they're saying that this will allow weekend dates to be maximized and that kind of thing, and also ensure reduced travel. You talk about the cost there. It means, when you play a game in Prince George, for example, you'll play 2 games in Prince George. Same thing with Trail on the outer reaches of the league. So that's something that you've almost already done anyway when you planned your schedule, so it's probably not going to be that big of a change, will it?
I don't see. For us, it really doesn't change a lot of things. We were, like I said, we're so central that, we travel to the coast, we go down there and play, and we come back. We weren't, staying overnight. And so I think with this way, it'll probably only cut out one overnight trip for us, which would be the Powell River coastal trip. But as far as the way it's being done, I think we are a pretty easy location to schedule for, and I would expect to see a lot similar to what we've done in the last couple of years.
Now, one other big announcement was the fact that the roster is reduced to 21 players from 23. This is another one that you didn't necessarily have a hand in, but it impacts you as a GM directly.
Yeah, it does. That's probably the most significant one, and I think the one that's probably caused the most discussion amongst the GMs and coaches. And again, some people are very against it, some are for it, and I'm just in there where there's nothing I can do about it. I got to move on and coach and make my roster. So it's not great timing for us. We obviously did our rebuild a year ago, and we're set to have a large number of players return, and this limits the number of new guys we bring in, and it also has some other significant effects on what we do. Now, we have to, potentially look at makes our veteran guys that much more responsible for coming back to camp in shape and ready to go, because we can't afford to carry a guy for a month and get him back into shape. You got to be ready to play and play immediately. So there's a lot of things with regards to APs this affects, with regards to practicing. There's a lot of different issues, and I'm excited about it. I think I've never liked having anyone sit in the stands. It's a tough decision as a coach, and it's going to be interesting again.
Now, if you run into any sort of injury troubles, do you think that, and we've seen this happen with your club in the past, not so much last year, but definitely the year before, do you think that you could end up being in a crunch for AP players just because you don't have those two extra bodies around?
Yeah, it'll, you're going to have to be a lot more diligent in making sure you get your AP roster done and not just, complete a roster and never intend on using anybody. You have to make sure you're picking people that are going to fit into your program, because at some point during the year, you're guaranteed to have to use them. And I think it's a great opportunity for kids to get more opportunities in the BC Hockey League and play Junior B and get called up and be active as opposed to just sitting in the stands in our league. So we're going to make sure that we have a very good relationships with the teams close to us, and hopefully place some guys that we really like through our main camp into those programs and bring them up not only for our games but for practices, so they're familiar with what we're doing. And I think there's a lot of positives in it.
Is one of the positives that will come out of it, especially for a community-run team like the Centennials, is the fact that you're going to have, and let's be honest here, Luke, you're going to have a billet cost that isn't there for two players for the whole season.
Yeah, and I think, if in your discussion with Brian Barrett or the governor, I'm sure he'll let you know that that's the most significant reasoning for this rule change, and that's very hefty. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know the league talked about the numbers of what it costs two players per year, and it's very, very significant. And again, what that does for us is allows us to put that money that would have been spent on those things as a nonprofit group. We're not going to keep that money in our pockets. We're going to make sure it's put back into the team, whether that be in a recruiting capacity or whatever that may be. So a definite benefit to our club.
Now, another one that was decided by the governors but has a direct impact on you, the idea that you have to carry at least one 16-year-old and one 17-year-old player. So again, you talk about your veterans, your 18, 19, 20-year-olds. There's some pressure on them here now, knowing that you've got these two young players that are going to be guaranteed a spot on your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for our older guys, it puts them in a bit of a between a rock and a hard place here, because every team is going to be in the same boat where there's not a lot of spots available for older players. So they're going to have to really make sure that they come here, prepared to contribute right away. And I have confidence that they're going to do that. And I'm excited about having, the rule where there has to be a 16 and 17-year-old. I think it does some good things, especially with the roster sizes being down to 21. Now it's 16-year-olds in our league who have to play, and they have to play every night. So it brings the age of our league down, and hopefully get some more excitement from upper levels of our recruiting.
One other thing that was announced was the fact that what they're calling an October selection of affiliate players. They're not calling it a draft, but it's your opportunity, I guess, to identify 15-year-old players and have them as APs. What do you think about this one?
I think it's a little bit outside the box, and I give the league and the governors credit for trying something different. Whether it works or it doesn't work, it's not really hurting anybody. Hopefully what it does is create some excitement around our league about some up-and-coming young stars, and gets those young kids excited as well. So we're going to have to make sure that we're looking hard for a couple of really solid young 15-year-olds who, again, with the need for heavy use of our APs, that you might have to draft a kid select a kid who could possibly play for you and contribute at some point in the season.
Is it something, do you know at this point, is it optional or do you have to take part?
I'm not sure if they've ironed out the details on that yet. I know some teams have said that they're not, excited about it and won't do it. I don't know why. I can't see a drawback, and we'll definitely be taking part in it. And I look forward to doing it. I look forward to creating some excitement, hopefully here in Merritt.
How different is it right now, though, than you being able to talk to a 15-year-old player and affiliate that kid if you want to, and then talk to him after the season about, maybe making your club as a 16-year-old? Is there really a difference there?
No, there's not a whole lot of difference. I think, we see how much excitement there is around the Western Hockey League and their draft, and, it's really not a lot different than that. It's more about, making some kids feel pretty good about what they've done and their accomplishments up till now, and express our interest in them. It doesn't mean that they're going to make our hockey team in the future. It just means that at some point we've identified them as a good 15-year-old, and we'd like to see them again. And I think in the last couple of years we've been able to AP 15-year-olds if we had to. It just nobody really took that opportunity because essentially you're not going to use them when you have a 23-man roster. I think Cody DePork last year actually played some games for Penticton as a 15-year-old and was very good. So that scenario does exist.
Now, I guess the key here, too, is that you won't keep the rights to these players at the end of the season. You just simply AP them. But that's the same rule with any AP player.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you do is you have to hope that you're confident enough in your program that you AP these two and get a chance to speak with them and bring them in and show them around, and hopefully they feel comfortable enough with your program, or they're excited about your program, and you get a little bit of an advantage that way where you get to sell the kid on your program, and hopefully they come back. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do to hold it to them to make sure they play for you. They're free to go where they want to go, and like I said, you have to be confident enough in your ability to sell why they should play for you.
Well, and like I said, that's pretty much the same as it is now with APs. The fact is you're just dealing with ones that are 15 years old at this point. Luke, this is pretty exciting news to talk about in the middle of May. I appreciate this. Before I let you run, anything else that you wanted to add about what are some pretty significant changes?
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's been a big, I think people realize that this has been in discussion for a month and a half now, and for me, it's really kind of put recruiting and planning for next year on hold a little bit, because I didn't see the point of going out there making a bunch of decisions when you don't know what the rules of play are going to be. So now that we're clear on what we're working with, we know exactly what we need on our rosters, what our sizes are, all those things. We're going to get heavy out there on the trail and follow up with some kids that we like already, obviously, and